Henri is now a hurricane. 75-mile-an-hour maximum sustained winds hanging out there over the Gulf Stream. Those warm waters helping to fuel this storm at the moment, but it is moving quickly to the north-northeast and it is going to slow down. And unfortunately, it slows down when we're seeing those impacts to southern New England. Now you'll notice that we do have this possibly making landfall as a hurricane. That's why hurricane warnings have now been issued for portions of Long Island into coastal Connecticut, as well as Rhode Island and even parts of Massachusetts here. And storm surge has increased with this forecast, going a little bit farther to the east here, as this did make a slight little jog to the east with this cone of error. And the problem is that we do have very high tides this weekend because of a full moon, but our water temperatures are going to be cooling down as this approaches New England, and you'll see that this does fall apart. However, a lot of this rain is actually going to be on the west side of the system. That is unusual. Typically we see more on the east side, and unfortunately this does hang out in areas that have already seen a tremendous amount of rainfall lately. So not only coastal flooding possible due to storm surge, but also rainfall flooding possible because of this lingering rainfall forecast into midweek, where we could see 7 inches in spots. Henri is going to have impacts in New York, and that's really unavoidable at this point. If you're in Long Island or anywhere that's near an inlet near the water, you may see more impacts. However, this is the path and the timing. We're not looking at impacts starting whenever we have landfall. They start long before that in the form of wind and rain and wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour. This is going to be Sunday into Monday is going to be your primary timing, but look at some of these wind gusts. We're talking about 50 miles an hour, 60 miles an hour possible in Bridgeport on Sunday afternoon. Even in Central Park, you're going to be getting up there with some of the wind gusts. So in Manhattan, yes, you have the potential for quite a bit of rainfall. The rain actually going to be more on the west side of the storm, which is unusual. Now, if you're on the east side of the storm and near water, that's where you have the higher potential for storm surge. And unfortunately, we have very high tides right now because it is a full moon. And that means that our risk for storm surge does go up, especially because this is a lingering storm as well. Henri is not moving very quickly, which means that we're going to see prolonged winds over water. And unfortunately, that means more rainfall potential for flooding and storm surge flooding potential. But by the time we get to Tuesday, Wednesday, your conditions improve rapidly.
Let's take a closer look at Henri's storm surge threat. Now, first of all, here's the track that Henri will take. And as the storm approaches, winds near the coast will pick up and they will push ocean water on shore. And as you may know, storm surge is the water rise above normally dry ground. So that storm surge inundation and flooding will likely begin overnight or early Sunday and continue to worsen throughout the day as the winds increase. So here's where we have watches and warnings. And as you can see, a lot of very vulnerable areas will be impacted. Now, we will have the greatest water rise along and east of where the center moves in. So here's where we could see some potential water rises. And notice in some of these areas, they could be 3 to 5 feet across Long Island, right on into the Cape. Now, if you live in any of these areas or you're vacationing here, you're going to want to follow the advice of local authorities.
Its second landfall in Mexico as a Category 3 hurricane early Saturday morning. The storm packed sustained winds of 125 miles an hour in the fishing community of Tuxpan in central Veracruz. Trees were knocked down, causing power outages in a few towns along the Gulf Coast, and Mexico's president said that emergency workers were standing by to restore power. Earlier in the week, Grace made its first landfall on the Caribbean coast near Tulum, knocking out power for hundreds of thousands. There have been no reports of any deaths so far. As Grace moves inland, it is expected to weaken, but that could cause river flooding and landslides in low-lying areas, and it is expected to impact Mexico City, which is home to more than 8 million people. Henri already causing some problems up and down the East Coast, but in southern New England, your impacts are still to come. Saturday night, things get started. It's really once we get into Sunday that we really start to see some of these impacts ramp up. Now, that doesn't mean that we're talking about landfall at that time. We're talking about winds, storm surge, and rain arriving before landfall. Looking at the timing of this, Sunday is going to be when your impacts start. And as we go throughout Sunday, you're going to see the winds increase and you have a lot of rain in the forecast. Check this out. Gusts up to 35 miles an hour. In and around Boston and Worcester, you're going to be seeing, yes, those rain showers and some concern for some storm surge flooding because we have a full moon. So we're going to have higher high tides. And so whenever we have that push of wind over water, we have that issue. Not to mention how much rainfall you've received lately means that flooding from rain plus flooding from the ocean are both going to be concerns for us to watch. Now, the unfortunate thing is that this system meanders. It sticks around for a little bit, but by the time we get to about Wednesday, you should see your forecast improving in the Boston area.
Henri will bring assorted impacts, which will really ramp up on Sunday. So let's break down the waves, winds, and the power outages. Now, first of all, here's a look at our wave forecast. The waves are already up, but they will continue to grow larger and more dangerous as Henri approaches. Then we're going to move into Monday and we will see improvement coming in. Now looking at the winds, we could see significant wind damage. Montauk and areas along Long Island, we could be slammed with these winds of 50 to 60 miles per hour. Some of these gusts potentially reaching 90 miles per hour. And when you check out these winds across this region, consider that we've got wet soil and you've got leaves on the trees. So that's going to mean a lot of these trees coming down. Here's a look at the timing of those tropical storm force winds, and they will be ramping up as we go throughout the day on Sunday. And of course, with trees coming down, that is going to lead to a lot of power outages. So now is the time to charge up your phones and juice up your chargers.